Hey fellas, how you doing? It's Johnny. Got quite a few emails this week from people that are suffering from social anxiety, anxiety in general, and embarrassment. I've got a couple of emails from different women actually that had sent me an email saying that they were really embarrassed about their anxiety, and they felt like they were the only ones who had this, and they were alone. And it ruined some of their relationships. It caused some of their relationships to end. Of course, I've mentored, I don't know how many men it is now, it must be hundreds over the 4 years from when I first started teaching men how to meet women on the street, as my teaching changed to now helping people to overcome social anxiety, heal trauma, and build their relationships with themselves, parents, girls, and all the other things around the area. And it really it's interesting, you know, because I was just thinking, they say that I was going to say, when you've been through something personally, because I've been through all these things: embarrassment, deep shame, low self-esteem, self-hate, social anxiety, pretty much every anxiety you could think of, from the most really ridiculous thing, you know, and afraid to tidy my room, that made me anxious, just afraid of everything. Even though I've come this far on my journey, and I'm not saying this to be egotistical, I've overcome so much, and I've achieved a lot in my own right, I still remember how it used to feel. I still remember, I think for me, I've really resonated with emails. Embarrassment was probably one of the most terrifying human emotions. And I think when we hear words like embarrassment, shyness, or fear, or fear of rejection, sometimes we take these words lightly. I know I still do as well. We just go, oh, he's just a bit embarrassed, and you know, we use common language like, oh, just get over it, don't be embarrassed, don't be silly, just come on, there's nothing to embarrass us. But it isn't as easy as that. It's not as easy as that, because I remember I used to get embarrassed when my dad walked in the room. He didn't even say anything to me. Even when my mum would walk in the room, I would feel I had to readjust myself. So there's an immediate feeling that I'm not good enough, and the embarrassment actually went deeper. I'll tell you a bit about it, just so some people out there don't feel they're alone, because this girl wrote to me saying she feels she's alone. The embarrassment was so strong, I was embarrassed of myself. So I wasn't just afraid of other people judging me, I was embarrassed of me. I was embarrassed to look in the mirror. I didn't like looking at my own face. Even to, I remember being a young boy, I was embarrassed about the idea of being in love with a girl. It made me feel uncomfortable. The embarrassment was so deep rooted in my psychology and I suppose my idea of myself, because of the way my dad treated me at that time and what I'd been through in school, and many of the other things that I picked up as a kid. You know, the subtle things that your parents do, maybe just they might make a certain mannerism on their face, they might disapprove of something you've done. You read these things when you're a kid as you do an adult. So I remember, just if a person disapproved of me, it just the most subtlest simple thing, it would really hurt my feelings, to the point where it would enrage me. I'd feel anger, I'd feel guilt, shame, I'd go through all these different emotions, and I'd say to myself, it's not a big deal, but I couldn't stop it. It was like a possession. The embarrassment was in my body. It was like something had climbed inside me. And I guess I don't know, it's common in psychology, I've said it before, we attract what we project. So I always seem to get into situations where it always felt, in scenarios or social situations, that it looked like people were ready to laugh at me. I had such bad paranoia. So all these things came from childhood trauma, low self-esteem, anxiety, and that's why I was so violent years ago. That makes sense, because it wasn't, I don't think anyone enjoys violence, you know, on a humane level, unless you're a psychopath, which I wasn't. The violence comes from the fear of being humiliated, embarrassment. Again, I've said it before, I remember Tyson saying the only reason, you know, he got into boxing and started to fight initially because he got bullied at school. So he went through that humiliation of embarrassment. Embarrassment is the fear of being judged, the fear of being rejected. It's a fear of abandonment. It could be just momentarily in the moment. And of course, we all we all fear the fear of embarrassment, but some more than others. So I've said it before, you often hear psychologists saying, oh, he's a narcissist, or he's a very jealous person. But we're all these things. We all have the ability to be a narcissist, to be jealous, to be violent, to be loving, to be caring. But when you've been traumatized, you're out of balance. So where one person might get embarrassed for something that is acceptable, like public speaking for the first time, or sexual intimacy, it's normal for young men and women to be embarrassed of their bodies because of all the conditioning cultural. But if that embarrassment is getting to the point where you can't leave your house, which is what I had, and I know a lot of you guys and girls have had, that's not normal, it's abnormal. And obviously that's when you've got psychological traumas, and that's what my embarrassment was. I realised as I've gotten older, as I've taught more, this is the great thing about teaching you learn, I've realised it's only now I've changed so much. I realised, God, I was so embarrassed, I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed to be me. I was actually embarrassed of existence. That's how deep my embarrassment went. And my embarrassment wasn't just when my dad came in the room, or my mum, or when I was in a social setting, or when I was with a girl. My embarrassment was all the time. It was in the background, it was unconscious, and when it was triggered, and Tolly talks about this, when the pain body was triggered, so if someone made a joke, if someone was just poking fun at me and just said, for example, I don't know, hey, how comes you're so serious, man? Cheer up, you've got such a serious face. I got that a lot when I was younger, and I've got naturally a serious face. I would be triggered, and it would be a story that would say, he's trying to make fun of me. So I've immediately got to protect myself now, and that's where all the violence came out. And obviously people didn't know me very well, or they didn't know what I was going through or how I felt. Most times people don't know. We don't walk around with a sign saying, be gentle on me, I've got trauma and embarrassment, take it easy, I'm very reactive. But most times people didn't know, so they'd get a real shock when I would flip and fly off the handle, and most times react. And it's, I just feel horrified to say it, it's a long time ago, but I'd react by punching people. I remember hitting people so many occasions, and then after, when the situation had calmed down, I'd just think, I can't believe what I've done. Who the hell was that? That was like a monster possessed me. But of course it's that deep-rooted childhood trauma of not wanting that person to humiliate you, because my dad had humiliated me when I was younger, and I'm sure on a conscious level he didn't go out of his way to purposely humiliate me or make me feel embarrassed. He was projecting anger or his own fears or his own frustrations in that moment. But the psychology at a young age, or an influential age, it processes and it registers things in a certain way. And embarrassment is a repercussion of the fear of being rejected. Yeah, because when you think about it, if we were, I'm just talking now on the masses, on the global thing, if we were so secure with ourselves, why would we care if someone laughed at us? Why would I care if I did a YouTube video and people started judging me and saying I'm awful, whatever? Why would that bother me? Why do we get excited when people say, hey, I love the video, or I like what you did? Because I know, as human beings, we are always looking for approval. We're all looking for approval. You'll often hear a lot of teachers say it. Sometimes I say it too. I say it comes off easy to tongue. Oh, I'm very confident I don't seek approval from people. Well, we all do. I'm seeking approval on some level doing this video. I love it when people love my stuff. But the difference for me now is my fears and my insecurities are more balanced. My self-esteem is above average. It's to a high level because I've worked consciously on it. I'm able to better withstand criticism and better manage or withstand embarrassment. That's why public speaking for me, it's never been easy. I said this to all my students. Some of them, you guys may be surprised, I get a lot of fear when I'm about to go and give talks, because obviously public speaking itself is a scary thing. I'm sure people that have been doing it for years, it's even been proven statistically, public speaking is one of the biggest human fears. It's up there with death. But every time I've done public speaking, 90%, I've always enjoyed it and felt really confident. Once I've got, past the initial 1 minute or 2 minutes of feeling like everyone's judging me and and that feeling of being embarrassment, and then you feel great. You feel great because you put yourself in a situation that made you feel exposed. It brought things up in you. It may have made you revisit old emotions. You've overcome it, and you've got that approval. It's not just the approval from other people, it's the approval from yourself. So obviously, if I'd have known this stuff when I was younger, and I'm sharing this with you guys and girls, if we knew this, we wouldn't take criticism so bad. We wouldn't be so afraid of the fear of abandonment. We'd be able to let it go. And that's why I was such an insecure man for best part of, well, how much, 25 years, maybe longer. I'm 33 now. I'd say I've been secure really, when I can really say I'm comfortable with myself, probably for the last 2.5 years. And that's being brutally honest. And you know, I was on the path of becoming more secure, but all the years of being violent from the age, God, it was, I can't even remember, since I was a young boy, since I was I don't know, 12, 13, from 13 up till I'd say about 28, I was violent and always fighting. It calmed down after 25. You just kind of gradually stop using violence, but sort of 21, 22, always in fights. And it was because I was very sensitive emotionally, very insecure, was carrying trauma. And embarrassment, if you're embarrassed all the time, that is trauma in disguise. If you're guilty, if you're confused, if you're jealous, if you're envious, if you're resentful, if you possibly don't feel that you can be loved, and I definitely had that. And of course I never would have admitted that years ago, because I didn't even have the intellect or I didn't even have the awareness to understand that I actually didn't feel good enough and I didn't feel loved. But on the other hand, it's complex, because many times I did feel loved by my mum and my dad, but I guess I didn't love myself enough, or maybe at all. So I was always seeking approval from other people, which I've said again is not a bad thing. If we didn't seek approval from one another, we wouldn't be connecting, we wouldn't be saying nice things about one another. But again, when it's at a, you know, when it's unhealthy, I guess narcissistic, or to the point where you're a people pleaser and you agree with everything someone says when you don't always agree, it's unhealthy. So it's all about getting the balance, and that's what congruency is about. And that is a balance I can't really give you through a YouTube video. I can't draw it on a diagram. It's an internal, emotional, psychological balance that one must come to. And of course, this is what I help the guys with on my 6 weeks program, or whatever Skype on this video. I'm helping people to find their own balance, and everyone's balance is different, because some people might be massive people pleasers, they might be very submissive. Some people are incredibly violent, physically violent, and get triggered easy, and they've kind of survived their whole life making people afraid as a defensive mechanism to not allow people to beat them up. So I started to realise it's that whole thing of, I was terrified of people because I was afraid of my dad, and because I had such bad social phobia, I didn't even know what social phobia was back then. I just knew that every time I encountered a human being, I got this feeling of nervousness, anxiousness, and I just felt I could be attacked any minute. Now, I didn't feel like that with close friends, but obviously that took time, and this is common. I've taught so many people. That took me a long time to build that trust. But again, I think it's another common thing. We all have issues around trusting people. That's why it's called a relationship. It takes time. You have to build trust. Trust is built through consistency. When you feel a person is consistently behaving in the same way, that's when trust is built. And there's things like unconscious, you know, unconscious feelings that you can trust a person. It's the mannerisms, the eye contact, the vocal tonality, what they say, how that relates to you, commonalities. So again, we often say things like, well, you've got people over here who trust people over here who don't. That's not entirely accurate in my experience. We all struggle with trust, but again, people that have come from childhood trauma may have, you know, a real difficulty trusting people. Most people I work with initially don't trust themselves. And I always say the same thing that my mentor said to me: you don't need to trust me, you just need to work on trusting you. It's got this profound, amazing, beautiful effect that when you trust yourself, it's much easier to trust other people. and it's also easier to discern people that you can't trust. So again, the embarrassment is you in a situation not trusting yourself to carry out a task, or even to fail at an expectation that is unrealistic or not even expected from other people. So embarrassment creates unrealistic expectations from human beings, and again, this is tied in with social anxiety. So I remember, and it sounds bad to say this, I was embarrassed to eat in public. I was embarrassed to go into a bookshop and to pick up a book because I felt stupid. I was embarrassed when people looked at me. I was even embarrassed when people said good things about me. It used to make me feel uncomfortable. So when we'd have family guests coming around, I don't know why, maybe because I'm so attractive and charming even back then, my friends, my mum's friends would say, oh, Jonathan's so handsome, or he's so well behaved. I'd go embarrassed, I had to walk out the room. And I honestly mean, that was just as painful as being violently beaten up, because that feeling of shame and embarrassment, now they didn't know I was feeling that, obviously, or maybe they sensed it after, but there's such a contradiction, and the contradiction is where a lot of the pain comes from. It's the confusion. It's the feeling that some days I feel okay, some days I don't. And when you feel okay, you're worried that embarrassment is lurking around the corner. So a lot of people, for example, they might go on a first date and the date doesn't go well, they get embarrassed. They try to kiss the girl and I don't know, they fucking dribble out of their mouth like I do sometimes. And the girl picks up on it, doesn't want to kiss you, or she says no. And you've got so afraid to experience that embarrassment again, he never goes on the date. Or it's years before he goes on the date because he's so afraid of revisiting those emotions, or she's so afraid, women as well, people. So what I learned to do is, and what I've just done for many years, I got so sick and tired of being afraid to be embarrassed. I thought, I'm still afraid to be embarrassed, but the pain of being afraid of it happening, I'm going to put myself in this situation, and I'm going to go visit it. That's why I went out on the streets of London and I did so many hours back then of meeting women, because I was terrified of it. So the solution is, we have to face what we're afraid of, and we have to feel the feelings of whatever it is that is making us feel that. So social anxiety, you have to expose yourself to the anxiety of being around people until you can get a better management over it. Get the psychological proof that you need to disprove that people don't like you, you're not good enough, they're going to attack you, you can't trust them. When you get the proof that's not true, you start developing self-esteem. Self-esteem is not built from reading books. Self-esteem is not built from watching my videos, even though I know my videos are great, they're inspirational. But you have to go out and you have to develop self-esteem, you have to earn it or reveal it. It has to be done through ritual, talking to people, or exposure. So embarrassment's good. Embarrassment's very good. Shame's good. Guilt's good. Anger's good. These are human emotions. So we can't do away with human emotions. So just because someone's confident doesn't mean that they don't feel embarrassment. Sometimes I get embarrassed. I watch some of my old YouTube videos and I get so embarrassed when I see the way I was talking to women, because obviously I've changed, and it makes me, I can't even watch it. But there's another part of me I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud to see I was trying, and I'm even embarrassed of some of my successes. I'm embarrassed that I went out and slept with a lot of women. A lot of men wouldn't understand that. They would say, they wouldn't understand it, because maybe they're not in a place where I am now. I'm ashamed of a lot of the things I've done. I'm deeply ashamed at how many people that I bullied and hit because I was insecure and I was afraid. But I learned a lot from those experiences. I wouldn't have achieved what I've achieved now. I wouldn't be teaching the whole world. So when you think about it, you can't do away with embarrassment. All you can do is actually get better at managing it and get it down to a normal, healthy level. Show me a man who never feels embarrassment in his life and I'll show you a liar. Show me a woman for that effect. Show me a man who is never afraid. What are people going to think about me? If we all really didn't care what people thought about us, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel, I wouldn't be a teacher, and I wouldn't have a need to live. That is a healthy fear. We should care what people think about us, because we wouldn't be human. But we shouldn't care to a degree where it cripples us, stops us from being the person that we want to be, stops us from making mistakes and learning and being human, for fuck's sake. Bit of frustration there and passion. And stops us from achieving our dreams. I achieved my dreams because of social anxiety. I achieved my dreams because of the discomfort that my dad caused for me growing up and the discomfort I caused for him. Because you can't give to a person without receiving. So my dad had to experience those emotions with me, and I sensed it when I was a young boy. I didn't know I'd be telling the world about it, and I had to forgive myself to forgive my dad. And that was the process. And of course, the great thing about being insecure is, and the great thing about social anxiety is, you overanalyze stuff, so you become an expert. You pick up on behavior because you're so aware of it, and then you become amazing with people because you know what it's like. It takes one to know one. I wouldn't wish social anxiety or trauma on my worst enemies. I don't even have any enemies anymore, only the enemies that are in my mind. But I don't have any enemies anymore. But when I was younger, there was this guy around the estate who wanted to get me, there was this guy, there was this gang after me, always afraid. And I even remember one day my dad saying to me, "What are you embarrassed of? Stop being embarrassed about what people think." And I was young and I got more embarrassed, I got frustrated, I said, I got angry, but he was right. He was right, he was giving me good advice. It's just, I took everything personal. But I had to take things personal. I had to practice getting better at not taking things personal. So I had to go through what I had to go through to get to the pleasure. Obviously, that's why I got really good at public speaking. That's why I don't even like saying it, but I got better with women, and I became successful in the sense of, yeah, I became successful with dating lots of different women, but it wasn't the truth for me. But in that sense I did. I became really good and confident at speaking on video blogs. I became good at talking to people in person and coaching them. Doesn't mean I did all this stuff without feelings of, I had to feel all these things. Then I became very good at being empathetic. I had to rebuild that in me. Because when you've come from such a dark place and you think everyone hates you, it's hard to love people. You can't give what you don't have. So I had to learn to love. I had to learn to feel, I had to learn to love myself. I had to learn to be honest. Honesty was painful. So your embarrassment that you're going through is the making of you. It may break you down, it may make you cry, it may make you angry, it may make you feel that you can't trust anyone, but if you stay on it, it will liberate you. Your embarrassment will be the very thing that will change your life. That will be the thing that will make you more money. Your embarrassment will heal your relationship with your dad or your mum or your brother. Your embarrassment will transform you. Your embarrassment will make you attractive. Your embarrassment will make you go from feeling embarrassed to feeling empowered. You start to feel that you've got the right. Then for the guys who feel the need to be violent, I'm talking about Jonathan in the past, to speak to lots of men who watch my video. Maybe a lot of men that won't come out first, so I'll have to admit it, so they don't feel judged. I'm not judging them because I was all those things. So for men that feel they have to go and bully other men to impress women, they'll stop doing that, because that comes from the wrong place. You don't need to do that when you're confident. And the word confident, again, even that gets used too much. I say it. Confident is psychologically stable and emotionally stable, and you've got all your insecurities in check. So I've got loads of insecurities. I've got loads. But I've got loads of, I don't even know if it's a word, securities. But they're all in balance now. And the fact that they're in balance, I guess I know who I am. Powerful thing to say, very relieving. But I had to go through what I had to go through. And lots of teachings are teaching people to avoid what they need to go through. And you will not grow. You will not become socially confident, free of anxiety, shame, guilt, if you don't go through what it is that you have to go through. And everyone's journey is different, which is beautiful. But a lot of the men I've worked with this is based on many numbers, have had a similar walk to me. Not exactly the same, and I'm sure it'd be the same for women. So we have to embrace our embarrassment. Our embarrassment is part of who we are. It's very beautiful. But if we take it in the context of how we view it as a society as a whole, we start getting all silly, sensitive, and then we don't go and do anything because we're embarrassed. So embarrassment was one of the things that inspired me. And then all of the greats that I looked up to, the people I liked, they came from embarrassing stories. Les Brown was abandoned, he was adopted, he was living in a poor area, he was bullied at school. That man went for embarrassment, and that's why he's globally successful. He's a lovely man, he inspired me. He was able to break me down, make me cry at 1 in the morning at 25 years of age, when I considered myself a very strong masculine man who didn't cry, didn't show emotion. Again, not showing emotion is linked with being embarrassed. I was embarrassed to cry around my dad. I was embarrassed to cry around men. I didn't even know how to show emotion. It's not good. It doesn't make you less of a man. I'm talking to all the men. It doesn't make you less of a man if you cry. Look at great men. Great men cry when they win, and you know, even when they, everyone cries, man. Come on, don't be so hard up. So your embarrassment would be a better teacher than I could ever be for you, than any guru, any psychotherapist, any book. But all teachers and books will just guide you, lead you towards you going into your own embarrassment. Have a look at the embarrassment. There's a lot of confidence there, but you have to expose yourself to it and disprove it and get better with it, and then it goes away. And then you actually start embracing it. You kind of, what once scared you excites you. What once terrifies you, what once terrified you doesn't even move you. So if you're really sensitive towards criticism, you'll start getting excited. I get excited when I get criticised, because I think this is the chance for me to really practice my spirituality and to see what a good teacher I am. I don't like criticism, like most people don't, but it just bounces off because of what I've been through. Success makes you be able to handle criticism more, and the failures are great. People don't speak enough about rejection. Rejection has taught me more than success. It's taught me that they're not even separate. That rejection is success in disguise. Embarrassment, I don't even know what's the opposite of embarrassment. I suppose it's being non-embarrassed or comfortable. You can't have one without the other, but you've got to get the balance right. And if people say they're not embarrassed, I challenge them to go out butt naked with all their bits out and walk down the street and sing hallelujah, and we'll see if you're not embarrassed or not. And no, I'm not doing that in my next video. I love you guys. Enjoy the process and overcome your embarrassment by experiencing embarrassment more. I got embarrassed then. Sorry, I tripped up on my words. I'll see you soon. Bye. Enjoy the process.